Hey you guys, how you doing? Welcome to Bones Collector. Today I'm doing a top 10 list. And I call it a top 10 list, but it's really not going to be. I'm just going to show you 10 games that are board games, but they have no player boards. And I like to talk about games like this because when I was growing up, all games had just a board. There were no games with a player board that was separate from the main board and that you did things on. You know, you accumulated, you went up tech tracks, or you were keeping track of your money or keeping track of dice drafting or whatever on your player board. You just didn't have those. You didn't have games like that. And I can't even remember the first game I saw with a separate player board, but I remember being fascinated by it, and now it's the norm in board gaming. Almost every Euro style board game and otherwise, even some of the Ameritrash games have separate boards that you keep track of things on that is integral part of the game. So today I just want to talk about 10 games that are in our library. And I went through my library and I kind of looked at the games I had and thought about them, and I wanted to tell you about these particular games that are games that have a central board and no player board. So all the action is taking place on the board. Everything that happens in the game is just going on the main board, and I really like that. I respect designers who can do that with board games, and it happens so infrequently now that when it does happen, I really enjoy it, and I like telling people about it. So without further ado, I want to tell you about 10 games out of my library that have a central board and no player board. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Toria. Toria is a game that is by Inca and Marcus Brand and Michael Reineck. Now, Inca and Marcus Brand and Michael Reineck, all three of these designers are outstanding. And the Brands, of course, they have 3 games in my top 100 of all time. This one, because it is my top 100 of all time, and so is Raja of the Ganges and Village. And then Michael Reineck, we just got done playing Pillars of the Earth, and he's done Santiago de Cuba. He's teamed up with Stefan Feld doing Merlin. So he's a very well-known designer also. But in Toria, it has a main board, and the object of this game is to acquire the resources. You have to have 7 hearts and 7 swords during the game in order to get to the castle and try to find the prince or princess, whichever one you happen to be looking for. And it is such a good time, and it uses a very unique, creative action selection mechanism of spinning towers, and I just love this game because of that. I enjoy playing it every time we play it, and that's Toria. I think it came out in 2015. We've had it since it was new. Some people view this game as being too light and breezy, and they don't care for it, but that's the reasons why I like it. It's light and breezy. So that's Toria. Alright, the next game I'm going to talk about is Rattlebones. Rattlebones is a dice crafting game, one of the few. I mean, there's not too many now. There's Dice Realms and Dice Forge are 2 other ones that I know about. And I believe Roll for the Galaxy had an expansion where you change the faces on the dice. So this is one of the few games that uses that mechanic, that dice crafting mechanism. So it's very cool. And here's the back of the box. And you can see the board, and everything you do is on the board. It's an action selection thing on the board where you're going to move to certain spaces. Those spaces have die faces that you're going to put on the dice that you're rolling. And there's different ways to use those dice and so forth. But there's enough going on in this game to make it absolutely a fun time. I love it, and I did like it better than Dice Forge. Dice Forge was fine if you have that game, but I like this one a little better. I like the theme, that kind of creepy circus theme. I really enjoy. It's by Rio Grande Games, made here in America. They were blowing this out on Amazon for like $9, and I decided to pick that up, and I enjoy it very much. So that's Rattlebones. And I did not show you the back of the box for Toria. I'm gonna do it. Here we go. Yeah, I should have done that. The last game, there's Toria. A very pretty board. Clemens Franz did the art in this game, so it's just a very pretty board, and the towers themselves are very pretty, and I really enjoy this game. So yeah. Alright, the next game I'm going to talk about is Tikal. Tikal is an area control game and is designed by Kramer and Kiesling, my favorite board game designers in the industry. I just really enjoy their games. I could rattle on a list of their games that I'm absolutely in love with. This thing is heavy, man. It's the Super Meeple version, and hey, Toothless, it's a Super Meeple version, and it has an insert inside and some nice chunky towers. Hey, doing, bud? Toothless, the world. Can you see him?
No.
No. Okay.
Come here. You're not facing
There he
the right
is.
direction.
He can be right there.
There. No.
That's all right.
He doesn't want to stay.
Anyways, this is a picture of it, and you're going to be building these
We'll move.
these towers on the board, and you have workers, or I forget the word, explorers that you're going to put around these towers, and it's an area majority mechanism where that's how you're going to score the points. But yeah, I mean, I just love this game. It came out in 1999, I believe. It's the first of a trilogy of games called the Mask Trilogy. There was Cusco, I believe, after this, and Mexica was the third one. But I love this game, and I've played Cusco, and I still like Tikal better. This takes a full 90 minutes to play, even at the 2-player count. It doesn't bother me for whatever reason. I really love Tikal. Yeah, it's excellent. Stay up there. And the next one I'm going to talk about is a really old game, Settlers of Catan. And Settlers of Catan just keeps on giving. I like this game. I've liked it ever since the first time I've played it, and I love playing it. It's a racing game. The first one to 10 points is going to win, and I love racing games like Orichalcum, where you have to get 5 points, and I think it's the first one to 15 in Splendor, and there's other games that use that point mechanism, but I really like that because you can win on your last turn, and when everybody else is on the verge of winning, you may make that one play that secures the victory for you, and that I really find intriguing. But Settlers of Catan is one of the best board games ever made. It is one of the most important board games ever made because it has brought so many people into the board gaming hobby, and I love it. We have some wooden nice framing pieces that we got for this game, and did we trick it out any other way or just those pieces?
We bought houses and roads of our colors because our player colors weren't in there.
Yeah, so we kind of tricked this game out a little bit, but Laura and I really enjoy it, and it comes with little player aids and stuff. It's just such a fine game, a great design by Klaus Tuber, and I think it came out in '96. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was 1996.
So we're close.
Yeah. But and it is a 3 to 4 player game, but there is a 2-player variant that we use to play this game, and that's why we can keep it in our library. So yeah, this Catan, and it was available on Board Game Geek, I think, the 2-player variant. And there is an expansion. There is a 2-player variant in this box, this expansion box for Catan. It's called Traders and Barbarians. I believe it might be a little bit difficult to find this. I would just happen to be at a flea market a couple weeks ago, and I saw it was a board game flea market, so there's a whole room full of board games, and I saw this from the front door. I said, Lori, is that Traders and Barbarians? It was quite a ways away, and it was on top of a stack of games. And
but we were first.
Yeah, we were first in line, so we got in, and I grabbed this, and it's got the 2-player variant rules in it, and some other things. So yeah, it's a game expansion for Catan, and I just love, I just love Catan. I love playing it. It's a great game. Okay, next game I'm going to talk about is Finca by Ralph Zerlin and Wolfgang Senkter. And Ralph Zerlin is a very good board game designer. We have some other games of his, but in Finca, you're harvesting fruit, and it's got a very pretty windmill mechanism on the board that is variable. Those tiles come out a different way in each game, and as you're acquiring those resources, you have to be careful, because if you acquire too many of the resources and there's none left to get, if another player goes to get that particular resource, you got to get rid of yours. If you have too many, you're going to lose all those resources. You have to be careful how many you have and to spend them as you go. That's what the mechanism is for, is to make you pay as you go type of thing and not hoard all the resources. And then you're building fincas for points by satisfying like contracts on the board. But we played this game at a convention and fell in love with it, and it was difficult to come up with a copy at first, and then they did a reprint, and we got it from Board Game Bliss up in Canada, right? So we got our copy of Finca plus El Razul, yeah, which is a little expansion or something. Yeah. So yeah, we enjoy this game a lot, Finca. All right, the next game I'm going to talk about is kind of a newer game, and it's called First Rat. by Gabrielle Acilo and Virginio Gigli. Virginio Gigli is a board game designer that we are very familiar with, but Gabriel Ostello, we don't know. But hey, they collaborated for this 1 to 5 player game. I think it was a 2022 game, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. And it's got a solo variant, and it has a variable setup on one side of the board, and then the other side of the board is printed with the spaces that you're going to land on. It's a simple move and acquire resources and do different things as you're moving around the board. So it's a very simple mechanism, and I'm glad to see that someone took that mechanism of just
roll and move.
Yeah.
Or not even roll and move.
No, what do you do to? I can't remember.
You just move. You have so many spaces you're allowed to move
I think
each turn.
you're allowed to move like your rats 1 to 3 spaces or something like that. And as you get more rats on the board, you can move them all 1 to 3 spaces or something like that. And then there's just various things going on in the game. It's just a lot of fun. It's about these rats that are acquiring what they need to build a spaceship and go to the moon because they heard the moon is made of cheese. You know, what self-respecting rat wouldn't take advantage of that information and build a ship to go to the moon? So that's what they're doing. That's what you're doing in this game. And boy, we had a lot of fun playing this game this year. It's a what do I want to say about it? It's not a real complex game, but that doesn't make...
It was thinky.
Yeah, it's thinky enough, and it's fun, and that's the most important thing. Don't let anybody tell you what is fun in a board game. Don't let them do that. If it's a fun game for you, that's all that matters. And for Lori and I, this was a fun game. We really liked it. That's First Rat. All right, another little Euro game that I've had for quite a few years, Ulm. Ulm is a game designed by Gunter Burkhardt, but it's about the city of Ulm, as you might have guessed, in Germany. And you are building a cathedral. This cathedral took 400 years to build, and in this game it has 2 mechanisms in it that keep this game in my library. One of them is this action selection mechanism. You have a grid of these little tiles that you're going to be pushing. Draw a tile out of the bag and then you're going to push it and push 3 tiles, and the one that comes out the other end is not usable, but the 3 that remain are the actions that you're going to take. It's like one of those little games you had when you was a kid and you scooted them around and you had to you had that one empty space and all the rest of the tiles were in there and you're scooting them around trying to make a pattern or something with them by moving that empty space around the grid. So it's kind of like that. And then the other mechanism I love is it's got a cardboard cathedral, which is a nice game piece that sits on the board, and it has 10 tiles, I believe. And each tile has a rule change for that round. So that's your round counter. It also represents building the cathedral itself, and it's needed in the game. And I think the rules, they try to start you out by not using that. I think it's called, you know, the simple game or the easier game. Until you learn the game, don't use the cathedral tiles. The one side, they don't have the rule changes. The other side are just plain. But just use the side with the rule changes. Go ahead and throw that into the game because it gives things to the game that you need, because money is tight in this game as well as some other things, and you need those rule changes in order for this game to come alive. So use that. But it's got a pretty little board here. Again, everything takes place on the main board, and I love it, and that is called Ulm. Yeah. Let's see. What do I want to do? Okay, I'm going to do this game. This game is called Vasco da Gama. Vasco da Gama is designed by Paolo More, one of the best board game designers around. Guy's outstanding. It was brought to this country by Rio Grande Games. I believe What's Your Game distributed this in Europe. But Vasco da Gama, it's a 2 to 4 player game. Anyway, this is an older board game. And this is a picture of the board. And this is such an outstanding game, you guys. It's the only bad part is it's kind of difficult to get your hands on a copy. But if you're... When?
2009.
This came out in 2009, and the game is so wonderful. It has a mechanism, like a market speculation mechanism in it that's outstanding, where you have to kind of push your luck a little bit on what you're going to do as far as how the money is going to be used in the game. And then it mostly is a worker placement game. And you get these big chunky wooden pieces, and you're going to place them on worker spaces on the board, and then you'll put those numbers that you earn from the market speculation on top of those workers, and that's the turn order. So depending on what number is on that token that's from the market. You put that on top of your worker, and that's the turn order for those workers to go in. Plus it has some special tiles of these 4 characters. One of them is a point, so that if you need 1 point to do something, you grab that tile, because you can take these back and forth from each other. So that's a little bit of interaction in the game, not much, but a little bit. And then you have different color crew you have to acquire to do different actions in the game. So I really, really love this game. I was so fortunate to find this on a virtual flea market at one of the conventions that I was at. And I've told you guys, if you get the opportunity to go to a convention, and it's a great way to put your gaming library together in a cheap fashion. I think I picked this game up for $40, which isn't bad for a game that's very difficult to find. So I was willing to pay $40 for this game, and I'm glad I did. It's absolutely outstanding. I have nothing but praise for this game. That's Vasco da Gama. The next game I want to talk about is Trois. Trois is a game that's designed by Sebastian Desjardins, Javier Georges, Xavier Georges, and Alan Orban. And this came out in 2010. I have a second print run, or third print run that came out in 2016, but I just love Trois. And Trois is a dice drafting game, and it is for 2 to 4 players, and plays in 90 minutes, it says, but I think Lori and I play this in about an hour. It's an area majority game, and you are in Trois doing some dice drafting, and the cool mechanism in this game is those dice that you roll. It depends on how many of your helpers you got in these certain areas as to how many dice of that color you receive when you roll them, and then those dice are not necessarily yours. Once you put those in the city, anybody can draft them, so that you might have a plan that you put together for the dice that you rolled, and that may go south very quickly if someone takes dice from your pool. And that happens in this game, and I just adore that. We've had it, ever since it came out, and these event cards that you see at the bottom of this board are such a pain in the butt, because you have to plan for those and have to think about those continually throughout this game. But man, I love this game, and I've had it in my library, and it will be in my library until I can't play board games anymore. But yeah, that's Trois. Absolutely outstanding designers. Javier Georges did Ginkgopolis, and I think he did something recently. Javier Georges had a game come out last year called Carnegie that's very popular with a lot of folks. So he's a very good board game designer, and then I believe Sebastian Desjardins did a game called Selenia that we absolutely really love.
He just did that Lofoten.
Oh yeah, he's got a new game called Lofoten. So, and then Alan Orban, I think he's got a game coming out. But these guys were absolutely outstanding. This game is, gosh, Euro game perfection. Absolutely love this game, and that's Trois. All right, the last game, number 10, and it is a big package. It is Ticket to Ride Europe. Ticket to Ride is one of the most popular board games ever made. It has done more to expand the board gaming hobby than probably 90% of the games ever made. This is in my top 10 all time, Ticket to Ride, in whatever iteration you enjoy. There's a bunch of maps, so you can take your pick. Lori and I played Ticket to Ride many years ago, and it just didn't offer the challenge that we were looking for. But I mean, it's fine in whatever form it's in. And then they came out with this recently, this 15-year anniversary, Ticket to Ride Europe, and the package is absolutely phenomenal in this game. You have, and I'm just going to take off the lid real quick and show you what it looks like inside. I mean, the board, the map is rather large, but it's beautiful, and then the insert holds everything in place, and you can play this game. You can have this set up in 5 minutes. We have all the cards sleeved. You have a tin can for every color of train that's going to be used on the board, and each one is a different train car. So they're all, like there's a tankers and flat cars and things like that. And then you have your marker pieces here, all your cards, and boom, you're ready to play Ticket to Ride. But man, I tell you, this game is just an outstanding game for the reason I told you. It did more to bring more people into board gaming than a lot of the games, that are made for hobbyists. I just love this game from Days of Wonder, and we have a lot of games from Days of Wonder in our library still. Quadropolis, probably my favorite game from Days of Wonder, is still in our library, and Relic Runners and Yamatai. We used to have 5 Tribes.
Small World. Small
World we have in our library still. Small World, Underworld. So we just love Days of Wonder. The production is just wonderful, no pun intended, and they do a great job with their games. We enjoy them, and this one is the last game I'm going to tell you about in the video. But what games do you play that just use a central board? I'm sure I've missed some. These are the ones out of my library. So if you guys have some, maybe you're going to tell me about some games that I didn't think about, and I might need to go out and play those games. So tell me which games you have that just use a central board, no player boards, and I would be curious to know what are your favorites. But yeah, those are mine. Those are the ones out of my library. Again, I love that kind of design, and I would love to see it more from designers, but I got a feeling it's very difficult to do, to make a really good board game that doesn't use a player board for each player, and that's why you don't see many of them. But when I do, I appreciate it so much, and I've been wanting to make this video for quite a while, just because I want to sing the praises of that particular kind of design, because all the games that I grew up with, Parcheesi, Uncle Wiggily, Candyland, Clue, Life, all those games that you stuffed on the top shelf of your closet and put your ice skates and baseball bats and stuff on top of, and you squished all the boxes, none of those games had player boards. They all just had a main board, half the cards were missing, and you still played them, and that's the way I grew up. But man, the gaming world is completely different now, and these games are fabulous, and this would be a great board game library, these 10 games for anybody. You know, you mix in a few small card games and you've got a library. But yeah, I wanted to share that list with you today. I love every one of you. Keep on board gaming. It's the best hobby on the planet. Like and subscribe. See you the next time on The Bones Collector. Bye-bye.